Thank you, SRO Hess. That was great. Josh Wilson is Deputy with Washington County Sheriff's Office, and he's going to tell us a little bit about DUI enforcement in Washington County and what happens when things go wrong. And take it away.
You got a microphone? Because I got a pretty soft,
Absolutely.
raspy voice. I have to pretty much yell for anybody to hear me, and that's...
You'll be live in just 1 second. Take it away. Perfect.
There we go. So I don't have to yell to get to the back of the room. So, yeah, I'm Deputy Josh Wilson, and I've been with the Sheriff's Office for about, just over 10 years now, full-time. And since 2008, I've been part of the traffic safety team. In the last year and a half or so, all I've done is DUI enforcement. That's my main goal every night. I get out on the road and I go look for impaired drivers. And it's not just alcohol. It's alcohol, illegal drugs, prescription medications, any of that stuff that impairs your ability to operate a vehicle safely. And I can tell you that I'm never not busy. Our agency alone, we arrest roughly 1,000 people for DUI every year. That doesn't include any of the cities, Hillsborough, Beaverton, Tigard, any of that. That's strictly the Sheriff's Office. 1,000 people every year, 3 a day for DUI. And it's a non-stop problem. Luckily, we've made some pretty good headway in the last 10 to 15 years and brought our numbers down. We've gone from about 150 DUI fatalities in Oregon down to 2011. We finally made it under 100 for the first time in 40 years. And in 2012, we were at 86, I think. So we're on that downward trend, but still got a long way to go. I don't talk to a fraction of the people that are actually out there driving under the influence. I'm one person that's going out throughout the whole county, hitting the bars, looking for those signs. So we've got a ways to go. That's not necessarily just through community education, but through legislation too. We have we're pretty far behind nationwide as far, or compared to the rest of the nation as far as our DUI laws. We need to expand that because right now it's a very, very limited scope of what you have to be under the influence of to be considered DUI criminal. That doesn't mean that you're not under the influence and not safe to drive when you're under the influence of all these other things. And your body shows these things. That's what I look for. Driving is a divided attention task. How many of the students out here are driving? 1, 2, so there's a couple. For those of you who don't, you will be soon. And I can tell you, driving is a divided attention task. The parents can all speak to this. You got to be able to do a lot of different things at the same time. Steering, working the gas pedal, working the brake. If you got a manual, you got to shift, scan the road ahead of you, look at street signs, pay attention to your speed. Drugs and alcohol affect your ability to do that. And most people, even when they're impaired, they can do one or two things pretty easily, stay on focus, even when they're under the influence. It's when you start getting to 3, 4, 5, 6 things, like you have to do while you're driving, that the drugs and alcohol affect and don't let you do. And that's where you start having problems with being able to stay in your lane, or stay on the road, or measure the distance of the car in front of you so you don't rear end them. So those are the kinds of things I look for. I go out every night. I spend a lot of time sitting on bars because, frankly, most of the people I deal with for DUIs are alcohol-related. I'm also what's known as a drug recognition expert, so I have a bunch of advanced training in detecting impairment by drugs other than alcohol, but my main focus, usually what I do is DUI with alcohol. So I sit on bars a lot, and I watch for people leaving and following out of bars, just kind of monitor how they're driving, see if they're doing any of that weaving, speeding up, slowing down, maybe they're following too close, maybe they forget a blinker, or whatnot, stop them, and as soon as I make contact with the person at their window, I usually know. I would say in probably 80% of the people I stop, I know in the first 10 seconds if I'm taking them to jail for DUI. And that's because of what your body shows. You can't control the bloodshot eyes, the watery eyes. You can't control your face getting flushed because the alcohol is expanding your blood vessels and bringing that blood to the surface of your skin. You can't control that dazed, well, maybe a little bit, but you can't really control that dazed, mellow look that you get on your face because it relaxes all the muscles in your body. So when you're under the influence of this stuff, I'm seeing that right away. You may not know it. You may or may not be able to control some of those things, but I see it, and I know it right away. And so I may continue my investigation. It might have gone from a simple speeding violation to maybe 10 miles an hour with the speed limit to now we're talking about DUI. And continue on running through field sobriety tests, if that's where it ends up. And like I said, most of the time I know right away, so the field sobriety tests are only giving me more evidence of what I already know. But at the end of that investigation, you've gone from a simple traffic stop for maybe speeding, like I said, or maybe not using your turn signal. Now you're in handcuffs in the back of my car. And for the vast majority of people I deal with, that is a life-changing experience. Most of the people I deal with have never been in trouble with the law, or very, very minimally. Most of the people I deal with are good, hard-working, everyday folks, like you and I. Get up in the morning, go to work, come home, or maybe stop at the bar after work, have a drink or two, and then go home. The multi-time offenders, the hardcore drug addicts, the hardcore alcoholics, don't deal with that many people, as far as that's concerned. It is usually people who have never been arrested before. And many, many times, the nice thing about what I do is many times, that is the only time that they ever have a situation like that again. People who are under arrest for their first DUI are typically eligible to do DUI diversion treatment, where you spend a year with a little breathalyzer in your car so you can start it up. You have to pay fines and fees, attend treatment classes, and go through all that stuff. And over the course of the year, if you successfully do it all, at the end of the year, that DUI conviction gets dropped off your record so that you don't have that hanging over your head for years afterward. But it's very expensive. It's very time-consuming. It interrupts much of your life when you get stuck having to do all that stuff. And after that one, we don't get diversion again for at least another 15 years. So if I happen to stop you again and you just did diversion 5 years ago, guess what? You don't get that this time. You have to plead guilty or no contest, or you have to take it to trial and hope that a jury or a judge finds you not guilty so that you don't have a criminal conviction hanging over your head. We heard a little bit of it earlier, that, about the peer pressure and the influence that parents have. I think that is huge. I deal with lots of people in their teens and 20s. I arrest plenty of people who are under 21 for DUI. And talking with them, I like to talk to people while either we're on the way to jail or we're sitting in the intoxilizer room. I can tell you a lot of that is I was out drinking with my friends, or I was out at a party, or I never drink. This is the first time I've ever been like this. I see that all the time. I hear it all the time, especially during the summer. School's out, everybody's having parties, or spring break is a big week for that too. So the only thing I can say is, I won't say don't do drugs, don't drink, but trust your gut. Part of law enforcement is we're always taught to trust our gut. If the hair stands up on the back of your neck, if you feel that pit in your stomach, it's for a reason. If it doesn't feel right, it's not. I grew up with a good family, a good household. I had a brother 10 years younger than me, mom and dad, great family. And I suffered from a lot of peer pressure. A couple of my friends they like to drink a lot, and one of them liked to smoke a lot of weed, and I got sucked into that a little bit. I didn't end up having huge problems with it, but I dabbled in it. I drank at parties on the weekends, smoked a little bit of marijuana, and I can tell you, even though I never got in trouble, I never got caught doing anything, never got a DUI myself, I regret doing all of that, and that's simply because of how it affected me later on. It was always, especially when I was applying for law enforcement jobs. You got to put that kind of stuff on there. Have you ever used drugs of any kind? Have you ever, been arrested? How many times have you been contacted by law enforcement? And when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, I never thought about that. So I'm here to tell you, think about it now. All your decisions that you make, even if you're 14, 15, 16 years old, they do affect you later on. They can come back to haunt you. Even if it's not severely, it does make a difference. So Any questions? All right.
Well, how about a round of applause? What I want to do is introduce Katie Riley. She is founding something called the Children's Opportunity Fund Initiative. And Katie, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, thanks, Eric. The Children's Opportunity Fund Initiative of Washington County is separate from HAY, but we wanted just to let you know that it does exist. We're a group that's looking toward having sustainable funding for out-of-school time programs for kids, so they're engaged positively during non-school time. They don't have to go hang out at Fred Meyer or be home alone for 8 hours a day. And we don't have any kind of support for those kind of programs in this county. We have some nonprofits that have positive programs, and but they can't serve everybody. And we need to have a lot more space for people to be involved in positive programs so that young people can be around other people who are not doing drugs and having a good time, and helping them be successful in school as well. So we are looking for people who might want to endorse what we're trying to do. I have a sign-up sheet over there, and if people want to learn more about it, we'll be in touch. We have a e-newsletter that we put out once a month to tell people about what we're doing as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions probably after the program as well. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to introduce Eric Myers. He's our invited keynote speaker, and he has just some wonderful life experiences to share, and I'd ask you to give him a big round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Myers.
Hello, hello. Before I get started, can we give one more big round of applause for the students that came up here? That was awesome. That was really cool. I know, I would never have the courage, even a year or two ago, to be able to do something like that, and that's really awesome. You guys keep it up. Like I said, my name is Eric Myers. I grew up here in Hillsboro. A pretty normal life, I guess you would say. I grew up with two incredible parents that really, they knew how to raise my siblings. They did an incredible job. My relationship with drugs and alcohol started, like we've been talking about tonight, it started young for me. It was when I was, I think 11, 12 years old. I was in 7th grade. And, like what Riley said, it really was an internal obligation. And we talk about peer pressure. I'm a sociology student at Portland State, so I study a lot about the societal pressures, but it's really what you feel like you should be doing. And that took a toll on me. I was a very shy person growing up. I was very involved with sports, which kept me busy, kept me active. But I still got into that kind of, those kind of situations where, it's what you do. You drink, you smoke sometimes. And it was never really questioned from my friends, starting even that young, 11, 12 years old, all the way through high school. And obviously, this is my 4th year, like I said, of college, and I can't even, the stories, just alcohol alone, that the effects it has in college is, I could go on all night about that. But anyway, like I said, I grew up with great parents. I still got involved with it, and being a shy person, and eventually developing social anxiety, specifically alcohol, was kind of like my outlet. It was how I could feel like myself, because during the day, this really developed, middle school, high school, I felt very insecure. I felt very, that tension that builds up in your body. I felt like I couldn't be myself. So, when I drank alcohol, got a little tipsy, I could be myself. I could relax, I could have fun, and so it was my outlet. And I really didn't even realize that it was my outlet, or that I depended on it, until much later, even my 2nd year of college. And that in itself can be scary, that we don't even realize the kind of impact it has on us. But anyway, I still, even doing drugs, drinking on the weekends sometimes, sorry mom, I still had a pretty, healthy upbringing. I still was involved with sports. You would never look at me and say, oh, that kid's gonna drop out, but I was still, doing the things that I shouldn't have been doing. And it was just kind of what you did growing up. Like I said, sports luckily were there to keep me balanced, but it was still definitely a big part of my life. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit. By the time I went to Hillsborough High School, so I grew up right in this area. By the time college came around, I first decided that I was going to start at Portland State, and a very big event happened in my life the day before I was going to move into the dorms at Portland State, and that was actually the day that my dad passed away. And obviously that's going to have a huge impact on anybody's life, regardless of how old you are. Losing someone like that, losing a best friend. But I don't want to talk too much about that. What I really want to focus on from that experience was, I told myself at that time, this is tough, this is hard, but my mindset, the thoughts I kept telling myself was, I'm going to make this a good experience. I'm going to take something positive from this. I'm not going to just let this, haunt me for the rest of my life. I'm really going to take ownership of this. And I kept telling myself that, but obviously it still hurts. It still is tough. It's still, it was still a big part of my life not having my best friend there, especially going to college where you're surrounded by people who are finding themselves, who are drinking a lot all the time, and really a whole new experience, a whole new path, discovering yourself. You challenge your reality, everything that's been. Like for me, the world made a lot of sense when I was 17, 18, 16 years old. I thought I had it figured out until, you get surrounded in this environment where you open your mind, you start studying things you've never studied. But like I said, I started developing this attitude that, nothing is going to be as difficult as this experience. And that was something that, it took a long time for this to develop for me. It took, to really have an impact on my life, because even the next, year or two, I still went according to my plan, what I thought I was going to do. I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. I still went to school, but, we're talking a lot about, alcohol tonight, and I can't really talk about college without talking about alcohol, because especially, I started at Portland State, I went down to University of Oregon, where it's expected that you go out Friday, Saturday night, and you drink, and you don't just drink, but you get really, really drunk. And that's normal. You get on Facebook the next day and you see all the pictures of what happened the night before, and that's how you felt, you built relationships with people. So it was never really questioned. And for me, again, with that social anxiety, that was my outlet. That was how I could express myself, be myself, make friends, because I was shy all throughout the day. I didn't know how to interact with people. I didn't know how to be myself and just feel comfortable in my own skin. And eventually the alcohol took a toll on me, right? Because that's what it does. It's tough to see it and notice it, especially when you're surrounded with people doing the same thing. But by the time my second year of school came around and I was going to, when I was down in Eugene, I started to experience a little phase of depression. And I became so dependent on the alcohol that was just where my fun was. And by the time classes came around Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I was just looking forward to the weekend. I was just looking forward to drinking and having fun. And that was tough for me. And then I started thinking, about my dad, and I started developing a negative cycle of thoughts, and I experienced a little phase of depression. And one morning, it was February of 2012, and I woke up after a night of drinking. It was a typical night. We got really drunk. We did dumb stuff, but we had fun doing it. And I woke up that next morning and I felt so horrible. And I kept, one word that kept coming to my mind was discontent. I felt so discontent with my life. And I kept asking myself, like, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? What purpose is my life serving? I really feel like growing up, I want to help people. I want to be able to give, to my community. But what am I doing about it? Because what my thoughts are and what I think I should be doing, or my actions, they didn't match up. It didn't make sense. And so this was a really tough morning, and my roommates were still sleeping, and I didn't really feel like I had anyone to talk to. So I just got outside, got a breath of fresh air, and for the first time, I went down to the Watson footbridge, and I looked into the water, and for the first time, I kind of thought, what if I just let it all go? What if I just jumped in? It was the first time I really considered taking my own life, and that was obviously terrifying. That was like, what the hell are you doing there? Why would you have that kind of thought? And that's kind of the effect that alcohol had on me. I still felt like I was myself, but it didn't match up. It didn't make sense. And after having that, kind of like huge moment of, do I want to keep living? It was obviously that I needed to get some help. I needed to reach out. Luckily, I have a tremendously supportive family. I could talk to them, but I needed more. I needed a fresh set of ears that would listen. So I went out and I got counseling while I was at going to U of L, and that was probably one of the biggest things that helped me out is reaching out for help. People, because these resources are everywhere, and I never saw those, especially high school, and college. You don't see those resources, but they're everywhere. They're in faculty, they're in your parents, they're in your friends, but it's really tough to see that because your mind is just, you have one paradigm, you only see it one way. So I got counseling, but more important than that, has anyone ever seen Jersey Shore? Jersey Shore, the show? So we used to watch Jersey Shore a lot, and I kind of resonated with the guy Vinny in the show, and he talked about, at the end of one of the episodes, he talked about how he had a book about anxiety, and how he kind of overcame anxiety. And I was like, wow, like that opened my eyes. I was like, I thought this was just some Guido getting drunk all the time, but I decided to read his book, not realizing it was like a self-help type of book. And that book literally, it opened up my mind. It made me realize I could live a different way. It made me realize that these thoughts that I have aren't who I am. It's just a thought. A thought is a thought. It's just how much power we give that thought. And identify that as us, as who we are. And so once I was really able to start thinking a different way, started feeling a little bit better, even though my life was pretty much the same, I was still doing the same type of things, I started feeling a little better. And it got to the point, that next summer where I had a day, I don't know what happened. My roommates were gone for the summer. It was just me. I was like, I need to make some friends. I worked at the rec center while I was there, but I didn't like meeting new people. I didn't like talking to people. I didn't have any friends there, and I was like, I need to make some friends. So I had a day where, I just had a lot of energy. And usually I didn't talk when I went to work, but I had a lot of energy, and I started to share it. And that was really the day that I overcame that fear of other people, that social anxiety. And since that day, I realized, if I can overcome shyness, even if it's just for a day, a glimpse, like a moment, if I can overcome that, what else can I do? So I started pushing myself even more, and that was really the day that I took control of my life. And I realized, I can't blame anyone else. It's not the city that I grew up in. It's not the family that raised me. It wasn't the events that happened. It wasn't that my dad died or that I was insecure. It was how I decided to react to it. It was my attitude. It was my thoughts, the thoughts that I put in my head. And since that day, I really started taking control of my life. And when I did that, something really interesting happened. Instead of going out and getting drunk when I went to parties, I was the only sober guy there. And I don't know if you've been a sober guy when you go to a party, but girls love to dance and guys are too insecure to dance. So while all the guys are, around, just drinking their beer and watching everyone else dance, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna have fun, I'm gonna dance around. And while all the girls are like, loving it, and all the guys are insecure. But anyway, it was like, wow, I can live a different way. I can still have fun without being drunk, which was a crazy thought to me. It was hard to imagine that. And I found my passion through those experiences, and that was just something I already knew about myself. I knew I loved helping people because I love people, because we all have a story to tell. We all have these experiences. We are literally a walking miracle if we think about the odds of being alive today. And I started just, going with that and challenging myself each day. And I can't tell you, the things that I've experienced, the mindset I've developed from that. And looking back, I see, it's really hard to change the way we think about things until we have these type of events. And they're not predictable. We can't plan them. But when we just take a second and open our eyes and just kind of see everything that we have and start thinking about everything we're thankful for, it's crazy what it does to your body and how it makes you feel. That's kind of my story, what kind of helped me, why I'm standing here today, building that courage to do public speaking, because I figure if I can do public speaking as a very shy person for the first 20 years of my life, hopefully I can influence other people to overcome their fears. And that's just kind of the path that I've found that's brought me up to this point. But the bigger message, what I'm trying to get at is, it's awesome we have resources like this. And, I was fortunate enough to have parents that really cared about me and loved me, but we all don't, not everybody has that. And maybe the kids that are trying out these drugs and using this as a outlet from an earlier age, maybe a lot of them just don't have that kind of support system. And maybe that's kind of our responsibility to people that do, to be able to help our neighbor, to help the person next to us, instead of just seeing them as that drunk idiot, those, the potheads skateboarding. Why don't we dig a little deeper and see who that person really is and show a little empathy? And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to challenge myself. But it's a collective effort with this. It's not going to take one person. It's going to take a different mindset of the group. And that's, pretty much what I wanted to talk about tonight. I don't want to keep us here too long. The last thing I wanted to talk about, just following that passion, because the way I see it, if you want to be a professional basketball player, you spend a lot of time playing basketball or an athlete, right? It makes sense, and then you're going to become a professional. If you spend a lot of time drinking and smoking, what's the end result? The students talk about this tonight. Seeing it 80 years down the road, you end up a professional, DUI getter, a professional chip. I don't know, but that's kind of the mindset I'm starting to look at things, and the way I'm seeing things is if we think deeper, longer down the road, maybe that can help us out in our present circumstances. And instead of focusing on what we shouldn't be doing, let's focus on finding that passion, what fuels us and gives us energy, and then we won't have to rely on alcohol to make us feel good, or drugs to make us feel good. But finding that thing that really makes you feel good. It was sports, and for me growing up, and eventually it was people that I really found an interest in. But whatever it is to you, and help your students out, help them find that. We're not here to just preach at each other or talk down. It's helping people find their passion, and then we won't want to do drugs. We won't want to drink alcohol. That's pretty much the message I have. Thank you all so much for being here. Before I let you go, I just wanted to share something my dad used to tell me. He used to drop me off every day, and we'd have our kind of morning ritual. And by the time, I give him a big hug before I got out and went to school. And he would always say to me, be the best person you can be. Be the best you can be, Bucky. So I'm encouraging you all. I'm going to pass along his message. Be the best person you can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Eric did a great job, and I'm going to have some technology anxiety here because I'm going to show some videos here in a second. Eric is also our newest board member for Hay, so thanks for stepping up and doing that. So now we're going to have some fabulous prizes we're going to give away. We're going to watch the top 5 videos that were submitted. So if you give me a second, I'm going to fire them up, and then at the end, we'll have you guys come up and collect some prizes. And our treasurer, who holds the purse strings on the prizes, has asked that to make sure they don't go home in my pocket, we get a photograph of you with your prize. So just chill out for a second. I'm going to run some videos, and we're going to go 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and then grand prize. So hang tight.